Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. What you're about to see right now is a small snippet of a 2-hour longer panel and conversation of a show that we do on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. PST time called Pastors After Dark. That show has a bunch of pastors that we get together from all over the US and around the world, really, from different denominations coming together to answer the questions that you guys always wanted to know but never wanted to ask. And so this week, I'm not gonna lie, we tackled a pretty hard conversation, and I was a little nervous to just share a shorter video clip like this that's only about 15 minutes long, but I know these usually do better on YouTube. And so please, if you are interested in this, if you enjoy this, please go back and watch the entire conversation, because it's so easy to take things out of context and just run with them from something you may have heard in the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes of this conversation. And so I'd encourage you, check this out. If it whets your appetite, go back and watch the full video. I'll leave a link right up here for you guys. But please do that. And also, if you enjoy this type of content, this type of dialogue that is happening, we encourage you to join us over at twitch.tv/GMA Ministry. That link will be down in the description below, as well as consider subscribing here. We have all the episodes up, both the full unedited version as well as the shortened clips for you to enjoy. Thank you guys so much for considering this. And if you guys enjoy, a like and a comment would be greatly appreciated. Let me know if what you guys think about this issue and what you think of this clip as well. But with that, enjoy this clip.
So here's an interesting thing that I want us to kind of think about. As I was reading some of the articles and stuff that I was looking into for today's show, one of the things that we see when it comes to gender dysphoria is that people feel like they're trapped in the wrong body, right? So it's a man who feels like they should be in a woman. It's a biological man who thinks they should be a woman, or a biological woman who thinks they should be a man, right? So it's a psychological there's a break in what their brain says they should be compared to what their body actually is. And so then it comes down to well, if this is the way God made me to be, then how come I'm in this body but have this mind? And where is the distinction between, well, God didn't mess up on my body, how come my mind is messed up? And then how does sin affect those things? Did sin affect my body and how it was put together? Did sin affect my mind and how it was put together? And how do we reconcile those things? So if my mind wasn't affected but my body was, my mind says I'm a woman but my body says I'm a man, should I try to fix those things? Should I try to where do I switch? Well, how does that work? And that's something that as we've had this conversation, now my brain's starting to think about that. Like, whoa, where does that come in?
Yeah.
Shadow, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I was kind of saying off the top, I think as Christians, we should be and really are called to be the people who have the most compassion with people who struggle with transgender, issues here. Because which one of us, anybody in chat right now, any of us here on this panel, at one point in our life didn't struggle with some aspect of who we are and how God made us, right? I mean, like, I'm 5'6", and I shot up when I was like in 4th or 5th grade. I was the tallest kid, and by the time I got to like freshman, sophomore year, I no longer could dunk on all my friends. Like, they were all 6 foot and above, and I struggled with that. Like, God, did you mess up in making me? Like, where's my height at? Like, I don't have that vertical that I had before on my friends, and there was inner turmoil. And as a teenager, of course, that's like one of the biggest things throughout high school is you are so self-aware of who you are and who you are not. And no one feels comfortable in that. And we know, as a sign of what Genesis 3 talks about, that because of sin, there is this disconnect between who we are and who we think we should be and what the ideal of perfect or good is. And we know we aren't that. We struggle. We fall short of it time and time again. This is just other aspects of the gospel that are so ready and at the fingertips that anyone could understand of this struggle. And so for us, I think it's not a necessary a denial of this person and say, oh, those feelings you have, they're really not real, or they have no root or truth grounded in truth at all, but rather, hey, I get that. I maybe haven't struggled in that area with that particular aspect, but I have struggled and felt weird in my own body, you know? And you grow so much between the time where, you become kind of more self-aware of that around 8, 9, 10 years old, and then into your 20s and into your 30s, you develop and change so much in that time. And so I think what more than ever, we need to be able to be compassionate, to be reassuring, and to say, hey, that's something that every teenager goes through, and let's walk through this together, and let's look at how God made you and how you are made perfectly and wonderfully in the eyes of the Lord. And yeah, and so that's to me one of the biggest things, and I think you're right on, Father Reinhardt, to even mention that and bring that up as an aspect of this whole topic that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and I think the part of compassion, I think, is huge, because I think one thing that I want to reiterate. Let me pull up my notes again. My screen's I'm gonna look whitewashed more than I already am. Okay. Um, Gosh, that's bright. One of the things that comes along with someone who's battling this, at least with gender dysphoria, because the question is on gender dysphoria, right? And so, according to the DSM-5, the most updated um, toolkit that psychologists and psychiatrists use to diagnose gender dysphoria, is that when they experience any of these symptoms, um, that along with those symptoms, that there's a significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. Like, this isn't just something that people are like, oh, well, I might be or I might not be. This is like seriously impacting their life in a way that is damaging maybe their job or their relationships, or they're struggling with depression or anxiety. Like, it is weighing on them heavily. It's not something that's light. It's not like a passing thought. Like, it is heavy. And I think the need for compassion and the need for love on these people is hugely important. And I think that there's times where um and then we start getting into like, how do we love these people and all this kind of stuff, and we can get into that in a little bit later. But I think compassion is a huge part of this conversation with anyone, as we eventually get into the application part of this. um, Parents, love on your kids.
Mm.
um, if you're in ministry and you deal with students or children, love on them. Like, share the truth, don't hide the truth from them, but love on them, like, care about them. Have a genuine desire to see them learn and grow in their walk in Christ, and that's going to be huge. Um, that's going to make a big difference on its own. Dustin, there was more to Ferris's question than I think what we've probably answered. Is there any more to Ferris's question that should be addressed? And if there is, what is it, and who are you throwing under the bus to answer it?
No, I think we actually did cover it all. He had a lot of like conditional statements in there, like giving us a very specific scenario. That's why it was so long. But I think we kind of hit on the question as a whole. Um, and it almost kind of leads into TM's thought. It's not a question so much, but just a thought. And so I'll read what he said. He said, I think definitely the act of doing something with someone of the same sex is wrong, even if you now identify as the opposite sex or even had an operation. But I think sin comes before that too. I think it's idolatry to put all your hope and trust in changing gender. Would love thoughts on that. I think I'd fully agree with that, TM. Idolatry is actually a very appropriate word when talking about this. Yeah, he said, I think it's idolatry to put all your hope and trust in changing gender. And really, that does seem like, from the conversation that I was telling you about earlier in the relationship with a student who watching her walk through that, and still to this day she's walking through that, um and that uh sadly has been where all of her hope and identity and everything is found, is in this this gender identification. It's everything, and that's sad. Whenever we know that there is true hope, that there is truth. And as Christians, we're called to share that with others. That's sharing the gospel, that's sharing the truth and reality of Christ and our relationship to God and all that kind of stuff. So we know where real hope is found. And you could do anything and everything to your body. You could do all sorts of things and try to find fulfillment and joy in that. And it's never going to come, because that's not where true joy is found. That's not where hope is found. It's always going to lead to a dead end. And that's heartbreaking to hear that so many people have to find that the hard way. Um, but it's a reality that many are walking through. So we have a job to do, Christians.
Mm-hmm. TM.
Absolutely.
What TM is it,
Absolutely.
Houston? TM1 cut? Is it TM5?
Yeah.
What technical
No,
move
it's,
is in our chat right now?
Fire Blast, I think. TM38.
Oh gosh. Are there any other questions from chat at the moment that you want us to address before we move on to part 3 of our conversation this evening?
Oh, Turtle just asked one. She said, so sin is a heart problem, right? I mean, at its core, what problem in the heart is happening in these sins? What is causing the desire to change gender? So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but would someone want to hit this question specifically? Because we kind of talked about it in the middle of another conversation.
Sure. Oh, God. Were you going to say something else?
Oh, I thought you were starting the answer.
Oh, yeah, I was going to, but then I was going to
go for it, Shadow. It's all yours.
Yeah, I think Houston, said it. I think Father Reinhardt or Heel said it a little bit too. I think kind of it's coming back to the same question over and over again. It's something that I think as Christians we do all the time, where we look at, well, where's the line? Like, how far can somebody go in this direction before it crosses like curiosity into sinfulness, and facing the wrath of God? And I think again that this is a false dichotomy that we have to shift away from, and to kind of go back to Hipster's question of, well, what is causing this in their heart? And I think at its core, it's what causes a lot of our sin. It's pride, it's idolatry, it's the desire and belief because of external hurts, because of things like we've been reading in chat or we've been saying, the absence of value or love or the relationship with parents or whatever it may be, that we typically find. We innately have this desire, the sin of Adam, of I know better than God. I see this as something attractive, something that's catching to the eye, that looks tasteful, that seems to be what will satisfy me more than the reality of where I'm at right now. And so we give into these emotions. We idolize our sexuality, we idolize our gender, we idolize our own emotions over and above what God says. And I think that that's the driving force that stirs the heart in the wrong direction. To then say we know better than God, that we have a better idea or design or plan for our life than God. It's a trust issue again. And to say, God, I don't really believe what you have is best for me. I don't really believe that you know my hurt or my pain. And so I'm going to chase after these things. And I think when you look at it from that perspective, we all could fall into that at any point in our lives. But that's kind of at least how I understand it. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add on, Dr. Heels or Ironheart here.
I don't think so. I think let me just double check the question here real quick. I think a part of it is like what is causing the desire to change? I mean, other than the fact that we think we know better, which I've learned over and over again, I don't. I think wherever it comes from, I think there's just this dissatisfaction with what we have. Someone mentioned it earlier, and maybe it was a different context, I can't remember, but like the grass is always greener. Like, oh, I could have this, or I could do that, or if only I were this, if only I had that, and then things would be so much better. Wherever that dissatisfaction comes from, whether it's from the enemy, it's from our own thoughts, or it's from our lack of, maybe we don't think that anyone cares about us, or maybe there isn't. I don't know what kind of. I mean, sometimes people just don't have someone that cares about them, like a person, like a human, because don't have that. And so this dissatisfaction is sown, and so they begin to want something else and something else, and they try to fill that void over and over again.
Yeah.
And it manifests itself in different ways and different things, different people. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's wanting to be a dude wants to be a lady and a lady wants to be a dude. Who knows?
Yeah. What you're describing is very similar to what Romans 1 talks about. We really just need a Romans 1 shirt or emote at this point.
We need an emote.
Every episode.
Literally, it comes back to because they did not give thanks to God or honor him as such, they turn into this sin. We see that cycle play out over and over and over again. And again, this is just another aspect of that same reality and truth of God's word.